Deep breaths, Klaire. Deep breaths. You can do this. Okay, let's try this again. No! I'm sorry. I need a minute. Oh, God. You've got this, Klaire. You've ranked so many soundtracks lower than you've wanted to. It's okay. It's all right. One more time. Hello, everybody. Klaire Fluffle here, and I can't do this! This is the single greatest game ever made. I refuse to hear otherwise, and I am only ranking it at 7th? I'm gonna have to call on my guest early while I think my life's choices and cry. Please consider liking the video and subscribing. Both of those things really help me out. Also consider becoming a puptron by checking out my Patreon, link in the description, for nifty perks, including 2-day early access to all the videos, including tomorrow's final soundtrack ranking video, which isn't gonna have Superstar Ultra in it. Oh, I can't do this. Special thanks to my head-patting Fluffle fan puptrons, Biohazard, Fiorial, Tyke, Jane, and remember, Miss K says, "Bam, you're gay now." Heart. I love you guys. Okay, take it away, Glitch. I need more time.
I love Superstar Ultra. As one of my very first games alongside Pokemon Black and Super Smash Bros. Brawl, I loved this game to pieces. Whether it was the gameplay, the visuals, the new game modes, this game really resonated with me, but I think the thing that stood out to me the most was its original soundtrack. When it came to Superstar Ultra's soundtrack, while I do think that some of its original soundtrack doesn't really live up to the expectations of some of the original game's soundtrack, such as the Marks theme, personally, I do think that it has its own merits and value. The Mass Deity theme is super iconic to the King of Dreamland at this point, and I honestly think that it's very hard for how to beat this original take, because the narrative and the story setting itself really helps this theme work so well. Nowadays, Mass Deity just kind of gets used whenever, wherever. He gets used a little too much, but in that original Superstar Ultra, the music really emphasized the fact that this was a final grudge-settling bout with Kirby's greatest rival, and I think that really stuck with me. It's hands down my favorite boss theme that the franchise has to offer, by far. Alongside that, there are some more themes like that are very tone setting. A great example being the Final Four theme for the True Arena. This theme is unsettling, and it really emphasizes the fact that Kirby is about to fight his strongest opponents in this game back to back, and even a new one. I have to give credit, though, to Galactic Knight as probably being the best. This cutscene theme set the tone for a truly legendary battle against a ever so mysterious foe, and it really, really made Galactic Knight stand out to me as one of Kirby's vaguest but coolest characters overall.
Okay, so it's come to this. 7th place, Kirby Superstar Ultra. For the unfamiliar, this game, as I said earlier, is my favorite game ever. I don't like calling anything the best or the worst thing ever. I only did that before for the bit. I mean, because I was such an emotional wreck. Yeah. But there aren't any games that I love nearly as much as I love Superstar Ultra, even including other Kirby games. It's truly one of a kind for me. And with the ranking it got, it should come as no surprise. I have a vivid memory of once, and only once, doubting the quality of the soundtrack, since it was a remake of a game with an iconic soundtrack, but with DS compression. Then I booted up the game to ease my doubts, and as soon as I heard this... then went on to listen to other iconic tracks in their Superstar Ultra rendition, including the ever iconic Green Greens. Yeah, no, this soundtrack is fantastic. Legendary on its own right, too, but we'll get into that later. Of course, the first big question to be answered before anything is, Klaire, aren't you just biased? First of all, no, and second of all, no. At best, you could argue power of association, which, yeah, that's here in spades, but that's because of how expertly well the music is used and how good the music is overall. It's not biased. There's plenty to love about this soundtrack, from the sound font, to the compositions, to those tracks that you wouldn't expect to sound great, but hey, they do. My favorite example, despite just being a minigame, Kirby on the Draw. It even stands apart from the Return Deluxe version because of how different they sound, although I do really love both. Here, there's little things like the extra jingle added to the opening of Spring Breeze, that's pretty neat. The Dynablade variation of Castle Lololo that debuted in Air Ride is also used here for that fight, and the Wham Bams. And even though Air Ride did it first, not to mention I played Air Ride before I played Ultra, I still associate that version of the track with this game before I do Air Ride. And I find that's the case with most people too, and that's insanely impressive. The goofy blooper reel that you unlock at the very end has its own music, which remixes the cutscene music from Gourmet Race and fits the goofy nature of a blooper reel, and I love the soundtrack! Now, to address another elephant in the room, or rather, two of them, why does Superstar Ultra get away nearly scot-free while Nightmare in Dreamland and, to a lesser extent, Return Deluxe feel puppies rat? Return Deluxe is easy enough, it really didn't bother me very much, but Nightmare's music was just kind of a mess overall. I've talked about it a few times, but to keep it brief, be it due to the composers being newer to music making for the Game Boy Advance, changes in energy to what was supposed to be a fun soundtrack, or lackluster remixes in general, the music was a mess. Superstar Ultra manages to sound distinct from Superstar due to how different SNES and DS music is, but unlike Nightmare, it still has similar energy to the original game. In fact, I like some tracks even more in Ultra. In particular, I actually prefer the second Gourmet Race track, Hilltop Chase, in Ultra. It sounds groovier to me, and that higher pitch adds more energy to it. Doesn't add a lot of chorus. This one was meant to be a more mellow version of one of the most iconic tracks in the series, but it adds just enough while, at least to me, even managing to sound groovier here than it does in the original game. There are other examples, but not only have I not talked about Superstar yet, but I don't want to rag on that game, you know? But while I can say that overall I do prefer the original game's music, that doesn't make Ultra's bad. In fact, I happen to think the DS was a perfect fit for Superstar and its music. Yeah, the tracks are compressed like crazy, but so what? I love DS compression. When I listen to the Orange Ocean track here, which is used for Grape Gardens, even though it's neither Orange Ocean or Grape Gardens, I'm very confused. I heckin' love what the DS did to this. Pitch makes it more fun as you run through the level and try and catch back up to Mennonite, and there's this nifty reverb echo effect added that helps it sound cooler. And unlike a certain deluxe remake we recently talked about, the echo reverb is used very sparingly. Not to mention, it just has such an energetic pacing to it, and that intro is so good. Builds up perfectly into the fun that's about to come. The energy of a Kirby game soundtrack, to me, is one of the most important elements to it, and Ultra gets that so right. I've mostly just talked about the more upbeat stuff, which, again, fits the DS and this game style to a T, but like with the Dynablade track I mentioned earlier, it can handle more intense stuff really well. Without getting into the new stuff, just looking at the classics, the boss battle music is as frantic and crazy as ever, I would argue even more so than the original. You can hear every individual instrument so well, I think that really helps it all stand out. Tracks like Day-to-Day and Mennonite's battle themes are, surprisingly, kept excellently intact. With the higher pitch, you wouldn't think so, but, I mean, Day-to-Day's theme, that's just about as fun as always, but Mennonite's? I'll admit that the notes don't hit quite as hard as they used to, but they all sound so much less standard and familiar. Like you're in this intense situation, your thoughts are all meddled, and this would be the music that's playing. That siren sounding sound that kicks in towards the climax, used again at the very end, is perfect and adds more intensity to it. I feel this version is more atmospheric than the original, as a trade-off for sounding less strong. I love what they did with it. So, okay, regardless of whether or not these are better or worse than the originals, these new takes on classic tracks sound good. I love DS music, I love Ultra's take on old tracks. They're used well, fantastic. They aren't all comparative winners, granted, but on their own, they all range from good enough to love, 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 love. So what about the new stuff? Superstar has undeniably one of the most influential soundtracks in the series. Gourmet Race, Great Cave versus Marks, that extra bit they added to Day-to-Day's theme, the boss music, this specific variation of Green Greens. How is a remake gonna live up to that? Fairly easily, in fact. Believe it or not, on an influential level, I think Ultra actually stands toe-to-toe with the original. In fact, it may even surpass it. But we'll get to that in a minute, since that's the iconic stuff. Quote-unquote lesser tracks here are still great. For example, Ultra kicked off this new instrumental style for Day-to-Day leitmotifs with the selection track for Revenge of the King. It's super neat. I was very happy to see it come back in stuff like Drum Dash Deluxe and Battle Royale. Of course, the insane new track given for the Kabula fight cannot go unmentioned. It may not have caught on like Mintley from Dreamland, but I'm telling ya, every time I talk about Superstar Ultra music and Kabula is thought to have been mentioned, people freak about how good the Kabula fight music is. And I agree, it's great! Away from Revenge of the King now, while both of the arena modes stuck around, Helper to Hero never really did, so its variations of the arena tracks shouldn't be ignored. And even Meta Nightmare Ultra has some sleeper hits, like the intro music that plays during the opening cutscene. It's short, but at least to me, it's really neat. Of course, there's also the 100% menu music used in Dream Buffet, which made me happier than you could ever imagine. This might be my favorite of the true 100% menu themes in all of Kirby, if I'm being honest. And while, yeah, we already talked about it, figured I might as well bring it up again. That blooper reel music, very charming. Even if I don't like the laugh track, it's a little weird, but I found a version that doesn't have the laugh track, and it sounds amazing. So, yeah, those are all the lovely tracks. Let's get to the insane stuff, the stuff that is iconic to Kirby as a series, when everybody knows Kirby as a franchise would not be the same without these. For example, did you know that Heavy Lobster's theme did not actually debut in Superstar? It was made for Ultra, and... alright, sing it with me now. Heavy Lobster, Heavy Lobster, Heavy Lobster. Do you know how strongly I associate Heavy Lobster and Heavy Lobster? Yeah. I sometimes forget that this isn't in the original at all when I play it. Superstar Ultra also made the True Arena a series mainstay, and while only Triple Deluxe specifically remixed this track, all of the tracks that play during it are exclusively what kind of style future True Arenas would use. The regular arena just kind of says Greek and kind of goes with that, but True Arenas are always intense, like how Ultras are, no matter what. Special mention goes to the final 4 track that plays, for not only being one of the most sinister themes in the series, but for being the first Kirby boss rush to use different music in one of its lobbies towards the end, something that every future Kirby boss rush would continue to use. I am telling you, this soundtrack is so important for the rest of the series. But come on, the 2 most iconic tracks are exactly the ones that you would expect, Masked Daddy Day and Galactonite. Galactonite is, no questions asked, the #1 of the series for absolute headbangers. At this point of Kirby, back in 2008, you never really heard something like this in a Kirby game before. We've seen it since plenty of times, but outside of something like Dark Mind and Amazing Mirror, and even then, that's really only part of it, this was really uncommon. So to see it in a Kirby game for a Meta Knight battle against the greatest warrior in the galaxy was just so cool. It's a moment of Kirby that I am never going to forget. And sure, I do prefer future remixes, in particular the Return to Dreamland one. This version is not only iconic on its own, but fantastic. Speaking of, though, I'm sure you all know what's coming next. Yeah, his theme in the regular game is great. No track in Superstar Ultra can compare to Day-Day-Day. In the opening, this nifty cutscene music. It's not bad, I kind of like it. Nah, you know I love to troll. Masked Day-to-Day's theme is perfect. That intro is fantastic, paced perfectly to get you ready and excited for the intense battle to come. And then, once it starts, it just never lets go. It's fast, it's fun, and it sells the fact that Day-to-Day is serious about winning this time so perfectly. I can't say it's better than Roar of Day-to-Day. I can't bring myself to go on for like 5 minutes about it, but this will be comparable, if nothing else. And that's because, well, Revenge of the King as a whole, but more importantly, its final moments. You've beaten everything Day-to-Day can throw at you, Bandana D fights a losing battle to protect his king, and Day-to-Day battles Kirby more seriously than he's ever had in the past. This is my favorite moment in the entire series. You know, when I hear the Ultra arranged specifically, I'm taken back to my first time playing it. And my second and third, fourth, fifth. Look, I could keep this going on forever. I've gone through Revenge of the King at least like 100 times. And Mask Day-to-Day's theme still feels just as fresh and insane as it did back in 2008. I actually had to stop playing on my first playthrough when I got to that point. It was literally too much for 14-year-old Klaire to handle. I hear around the rumor mill every now and then that there are people who prefer future remixes of this, like the Triple Deluxe or, well, the Triple Deluxe version, that's really it. And while I won't shame anyone for feeling that way, that remix is great, I can't disagree more. It feels like this was tailor-made for the DS, and the energy, pacing, and intensity of the original still goes unmatched. And when it's all over, love the storytelling here with no dialogue. Love this track that plays that parallels Revenge of Mennonite. Love the crunchy, compressed visuals. Ooh, love Superstar Ultra the most. Nothing tops this game, and especially this moment. For legal reasons, I have to specify for me. Now, surprise, surprise, I do find myself having some very minor issues with the soundtrack. The first one shouldn't come as a surprise, but given that this game is a remake, it is kind of a bummer that there are enough tracks that I find way better in Superstar. If they were just a little better, I wouldn't mind so much, but they were talking not even close. I'm looking at the soundtrack by itself, granted, so this doesn't bother me too much for sake of the rankings. Yes, I like Nightmare even less if I more actively compared it to the original adventure, like I'm doing with these two, but still. And while this is certainly an unfair criticism, come on, you listen to me talk. We all know this is my favorite game ever made. Naturally, I'm gonna expect more out of it, so when I get a soundtrack that doesn't even clear the top 5 from it, it's gonna be a problem. In terms of actual fair critiques, I mean, I've got nothing. Maybe my guest will. Take it away, Glitch. Oh, wait, I used the guest already. Shoot. Yeah, I can't criticize. The soundtrack is so good. But that's it, everyone. The final regular video for Kirby Month, and it's for my favorite game of all time. Tomorrow, we tackle the top 6 Kirby game soundtracks all in one video. For a refresher, that's Kirby Superstar, the original, although I'm sure I'll be talking about Ultra, Air Ride, Return to Dreamland, Rainbow Curse, Planet Robobot, and Dream Buffet. The premiere should already be up by the time this video goes live, so be sure to set the notification for waiting so that you're notified, like and subscribe for when it starts. And in the comments, tell me your thoughts on this wonderful soundtrack and which of those 6 games will take the #1 spot. Until I see you all again, I've been Klaire. Thank you all so much for watching. Superstar Ultra is the best game ever. Bye!